Welcome back, everyone, to another Downward Day. And on the last episode of our little show here, I talked about the declining standard of living in the United States of America. And contrary to what many of you may believe, it wasn't just a doomer video for the sake of me complaining. The point of that video was to set the stage for what's coming next here on the channel. And that's because I've been thinking about this issue for a long time now. Many months, many years even. I've been dedicating lots of time and effort and brain power into thinking this over. Thinking about what it really means and implies to be living in a world where the fabric of society and the very nature, the economic bedrock that American society is built upon, to live in a world where that is slowly crumbling and deteriorating. And again, having any sort of negative outlook about the future immediately leads people to label you as a doomer and as someone who wants to curl up in a fetal position and just give up on life. I need to clarify that that's not the nature of what this is here. I'm trying to offer proactive solutions and advice for the reality that's just staring at us right in front of our face. So trust me, I understand that the subject matter is rather depressing. The overarching theme of what I'm discussing is going to be not the happiest thing in the world. And I'd be lying if I said I was particularly joyful about the way things seem to be headed. Yes, it is a very unpleasant situation, but ignoring it and pretending that everything's okay is not going to help you at all. And I guess my general point with all of this, prefacing the big spiel I'm about to get into, is that confronting this problem and confronting the reality in front of us is often going to involve many of you having to completely relearn everything you've been told about everything. And that has honestly been my experience in the past several years of trying to mentally confront this problem. I have personally had to relearn and reconstruct entire belief systems about how the world works, basically from scratch. And one of the biggest ideas that I've had to completely change my perspective on over the past couple years has been the concept of work. Working as an American, contributing to the American economy by exchanging your time and effort and labor for a paycheck. It is this core concept which arguably defines American life. Starting from the time when you're freshly out of diapers, the standard expected American life trajectory is you go to school and do homework and get good grades and pass tests so you can get into college and do more difficult homework and exams and tests so you can get a degree, get hired for a career, work 40 years and then retire so you can spend the last 10 or so years of your life spending all the money you made working for 40 years straight. And specifically within the context of American culture, perhaps more so than any other culture in the world, the idea of hard work is treated as a virtue. It is almost axiomatic. The way working hard is supposed to correspond with your value as a good person. And this sentiment about the value and importance of hard work, it's a motto that was almost endlessly repeated to me ever since I was a kid. Pretty much every authority figure in my life, every person above the age of 20, they would constantly espouse the value of hard work. And through all this constant reinforcement, I learned to basically treat hard work as this absolute good. So much so that you were basically expected in America to sacrifice qualities of your own life, qualities of your own well-being, to appease this grandiose idea of working hard. And speaking from personal experience, I'm someone who adopted this way of thinking from very early on. As in, I made it my personal mission to try super duper hard at school, extracurriculars, all the other volunteering things, resume building things, designed to get you in college and to improve your standing as you work your way further and further up the pyramid of success and productivity. I'm someone who bought in to that whole MO at a very early age, and I sacrificed. I sacrificed important milestones in social development, important life events that you can only do in your formative years and that you can never do again. I sacrificed a lot of it for the service of working hard and resume building for some unknowable, non-existent job in the distant future. To me, my thinking at the time was that it didn't matter. Who cares? Who cares if you're giving up all this stuff that feels natural, that feel like natural rites of passage for your development as an actual individual, not as a worker, not as some cog in someone else's machine that's doing work for someone else, your development as an actual individual human being. But I figured it didn't matter, or at least even if it did matter, it doesn't matter as much as the all-important skill of being a workaholic and contributing to society, whatever society needs of you, whatever society asks of you, contributing to that by working hard. Oh, believe you me, I was very much on the conveyor belt to wage world. And I kept it up. I kept it up all the way through high school, all the way up until my first semester of college, where seemingly everything was going according to plan. I'd done all the work at being a super ultra sweaty try-hard student through all 4 years of high school. And hey, mission success, I got into the school that I wanted. And now I get to take all these super try-hard math and physics classes to become an engineer so I can work hard for 40 years and then retire. It was all happening the way the coaches drew it up. I was becoming the militant hard worker that American society demanded me to be. It was all going so smoothly, except for one thing, the fact that I was a completely, totally miserable and neurotic wreck. It was that point during my very first semester of college where I'd sunken down to my absolute lowest point as a human being. One of the only time spans in my life, significant amounts of time during which I would consider myself to have actually been clinically depressed. So what exactly happened here? What went wrong? I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing, everything I believed I was supposed to be doing, and I was completely miserable. I had never been more miserable. And people call me a doomer today, but that time span in my life, about a 2.5 week time span in the October of 2016, that was the only time in my adult life where I'd wake up every day with this complete sense of dread. I'd roll out of bed each day with a complete aversion to the life that I would have to live on that day. And then I'd have to live that life and go to bed knowing that I have to repeat the exact same miserable experience again and again and again. And basically what ended up causing me to feel this way is this sudden sinking realization that I had spent the previous 4 years of my life in high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. I spent all 4 of those years doing nonstop work and tests and exams and projects and essays and homework. I had done all that and sacrificed a lot of potential joy and wisdom so I could go to college and do more work and homework and tests and exams and projects and essays. I had done all that work and sacrificed so much of my growth as a person just to have the privilege and opportunity of doing more work, and to pinpoint the precise reason of why I felt the way I did during this time, why every waking day was a complete miserable dreg. It's because for the first time in my life, I was waking up and feeling like I was in the movie Groundhog Day. I had already spent the last 4 years exhausting myself with labor. I felt like I was drowning in this infinitely repeating nightmare of events. where no matter how much I stressed out and exhausted myself completing the next bit of work that was assigned to me, I couldn't escape this feeling that I was just spinning my wheels in place and not actually making any progress towards anything. I pretty much found myself in the exact same place that I was 4 years ago, looking ahead with 4 more years of hard, stressful, exhausting work in front of me. And part of me was confused as to why I felt this way, as to why I felt so miserable. I mean, after all, it was something that I anticipated by choosing to go to college. It was something that I knew was coming. I knew it would take this long, X amount of years, X amount of credit hours to get the degree. This was all known coming in, so why was I just now feeling and experiencing the burden of it? And to me, it really just came down to this alarm bell going off in my head that the way I feel now, the misery and dread that I experience by simply waking up to go face the day, this is not just for the next 4 years. Because that's what I was telling myself to get me through high school and to bust my balls and work myself to the point of a sweaty, completely exhausted student. That was what I would tell myself then to keep me working, to keep the system in place and to make it seem like it was worth it, to convince myself that I was on the right track. You just got to keep at it, keep your head down, keep your foot on the gas, and get to the next level and you'll be better off. Well, I was at the next level. And by going to college, there was almost this expectation that things were supposed to get easier. Or maybe not necessarily easier, but at least more enjoyable. So basically what I'm trying to say is that there was this implication that college was supposed to act as this sort of payoff for all the work I had done previously, the previous 4 years of my life, busting my ass at school. It was all supposed to have been made worth it by going to college. And yet, once I got into it, and once I got into the rhythm of the work and the tests and the exams and the project, I realized that nothing had really changed. And the fact that I felt like nothing had really changed made me miserable. Because despite the last 4 years of supposedly making progress as a sweaty, try-hard student, I find that the reality of my life is that I'm still a sweaty, try-hard student, and really nothing more. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. I did exactly what I was told to do, and I was in the worst shape I had ever been in my entire life. I felt like I was defined by nothing but working, by nothing but getting good test scores or turning in all my homework on time. I had made it to college, the great academic milestone, but down in the pits of my soul, I felt like I hadn't actually gone anywhere. And so during those several weeks, I did a lot of soul searching. I took a hard look at my past, at what all my decisions of ardently being the ultimate worker bee had accomplished for me in the present, and then I took a look at the future. And I thought to myself, if I feel this bad now, what's it going to be like in 40 years? Is there nothing more to life than 40 more years of this? Keeping your head down and being a good worker. Because if I'm being realistic, I could have probably kept my head down. I could have soldiered through, gotten through all the physics and math classes, complete pain in the ass, sweaty, obnoxious classes. I could have kept being the worker bee, got my degree in some engineering whatever, and then gotten a nice white-collar office job where I can sit in a cubicle all day and type on a computer. I realistically had the ability to do that and structure my life in that way. But looking down that long tunnel of hypothetical existence, it finally dawned on me the big picture. The puzzle pieces finally clicked into place, and all of a sudden, the solution was clear as day. After all this time and throughout my entire life story to this point, I had been valuing the wrong things. I had been living someone else's life. A life designed by people who don't know me, but want to extract things out of me. And so, for pretty much the first time in my life, I took control. I disengaged the autopilot and pumped the brakes. I made the decision to say, hey, let's try this crazy, never-before-seen concept of choosing the option with less work. Let's hop over to the path that gives me more of my time back to myself, that I can use to actually develop wisdom and figure out the person I actually want to be in life. How about I choose the path that actually allows me room to develop as a human, and one that lets me learn how to behave and operate in a world where not everyone has to work all the time, and one that actually gives me the time to develop personal skills and experiences of how to conduct myself away from work, how to think and operate in places where the objectives aren't given to you beforehand. How about I stop sacrificing the parts of life that are essential for actually wanting to live in it? And the day I finally figured this out was the day my career as an engineer ended. And immediately after that, I transferred into media production, something that I was already inherently passionate about beforehand. Something that already on my own I had put a lot of effort into, but something that didn't feel like backbreaking, exhausting work. Something that didn't feel like working for the sake of working. Working to adhere to some so-called virtue that only exists to grease the gears of the economic system. And yeah, I gotta say, compared to the engineering classes that my trajectory was leading me towards, those media production classes were certainly easy street in comparison. But I take no shame at all in choosing the path with less labor. And still, to this day, my favorite and most valuable experiences in college was all the stuff I did while I wasn't working. Everything that had nothing to do with work. That was where the value of life came during my college experience. And looking at my life today, I can truly say that choosing to step off the path of work, it truly is the best decision I've ever made. And at the time it happened, it was really the only decision that I actually made. So I wanted to tell this personal story just to give you my perspective on the philosophy of work in general, and the philosophy of work as it pertains to the American economy and what people in America are supposed to do with their lives. Because while I've found myself in a good place today, and while I've managed to be successful in my own right, and I take great satisfaction in that, I can't help but continue to experience a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Because I can't help but wonder that after I did the opposite of what everyone else told me to do, and it ended up being the right choice, then why was the conventional teachings of every authority figure in my life leading me to the wrong choice? There is a profound incongruity based on how my life actually turned out and how I was told it should have turned out. And this whole experience, this whole ordeal, ended up planting a seed that really makes me question how we approach the idea of work in this country, in American society. And so in the next video, I'm going to discuss that a bit more. And to many of you, what I'm going to say is probably going to sound really controversial and counterintuitive. But please note that everything I'm about to say when that future video comes, it is based on my own personal, unmistakable experience. There's a very strong reason for why I feel what I feel. And next time on the channel, I'm going to tell you guys exactly what that is.